LGB Q. I'm Michael Smerconish in Philadelphia. The T was missing this week. We seem to have consensus on lesbian, gay, bisexual, and queer or questioning rights in America. In 2015, the Supreme Court upheld same-sex marriage in the Obergefell case. Notwithstanding the occasional baker who refuses to bake a wedding cake for a same-sex couple, I'd say by and large we've moved on from the debate surrounding same-sex marriage. But the T in LGBTQ, as in transgender, has become the new cultural and political divide. As noted by the New York Times, the Trump campaign spent more than $37 million on television ads that invoke transgender issues, nearly 20% of its overall ad budget. That, according to data provided by Ad Impact, an organization that tracks political ad placement and spending. They would never have spent that kind of money without some confirmation that the message was resonating. In one of the election's most notable ads, the Trump campaign highlighted Kamala Harris's embrace of transgender inmate access to taxpayer-funded transitions. You'll remember the tagline, Kamala is for they, them. Trump is for you. It was the Willie Horton ad of the 2024 cycle. And analysis indicated that the Kamala is for they, them ad shifted the race by 2.7 percentage points in favor of Trump after viewers watched it. The shift was particularly pronounced among suburban women and young male voters. But at the same time this cudgel was helping elect Donald Trump, something interesting was happening in Delaware. There, voters elected Sarah McBride, who'd become the nation's first trans candidate elected to a state senate, now as the nation's first transgender member of Congress. Enter Republican Nancy Mace, who we invited, by the way, to be on the program this week. She declined. But what she did do was introduce legislation to restrict Capitol restroom use to a person's biological sex. House Speaker Mike Johnson agreed. McBride stayed above the fray, saying she didn't run for Congress to fight about bathrooms. She also tweeted, everyday Americans go to work with people who have life journeys different from their own and engage with them respectfully. I hope members of Congress can muster that same kindness. In contrast to that grace, Nancy Mace went on the offensive.
Are you suggesting that the Representative-elect McBride poses some kind of danger to you and other women in Congress?
Absolutely. Absolutely, 100%. This is an assault on women. A man being a biological man, a man with a penis, male genitalia, being in a women's locker room is an assault on women. And so the question is, do I have rights as a woman or not? And I'm not going to allow the media or Congress to strip away women's rights for 0.5% of people out there that more than likely he's got a mental illness, and this is why he's doing this. He should not be forcing his private parts into women's private spaces. I'm absolutely a no, hard pass on this. I'm going to fight it every step of the way.
Now she's gone so far as to sell merchandise off her transgender bathroom bill, T-shirts that say, come and take it. It represents quite an expedient change for Nancy Mace, as noted by Monica Hess at The Washington Post. In a 2021 tweet unearthed this week, Mace posted a heartfelt pride message to her constituents. The pandemic kept all of us from fully celebrating pride here in the Low Country in 2020, but hopefully, as we finally begin to open back up, we can all come together to celebrate the challenges our LGBTQ plus has overcome and the bright future ahead. And in March of 2021, she told The Washington Examiner, a conservative newspaper, I strongly support LGBTQ rights and equality. No one should be discriminated against. Hess also notes something that I've long said on my SiriusXM radio program, which is that women's bathrooms have stalls. Nobody's in anyone else's space, a detail that Nancy Mace seems to ignore. And yesterday on my radio program, I took a call from Yamani in Columbus, Ohio. She made an interesting point. She said if Nancy Mace wants bathrooms assigned by biological birth, how is she going to feel when a trans man is now in the next stall? So what changed? The Congresswoman obviously realized the resonance of the anti-trans talk, which I find sad and despicable, and anti-conservative. What happened to the Gadsden flag? You know, what happened to live and let live? Before the age of charlatans, there were real conservatives like Barry Goldwater, who when asked to campaign against gays in the military said, you don't need to be straight to fight and die for your country, you just need to shoot straight. Democrats were caught flat-footed by the GOP attack on the trans community. The New York Times reported that the Harris campaign could not agree on a response to the they-them Trump commercial. One idea was to note that taxpayer-funded transition surgery for inmates was in place when Donald Trump was president. And in the end, the Harris campaign just decided to condemn negative ads without mentioning Trump's transgender attacks. Former Philadelphia mayor, former Pennsylvania governor, head of the DNC, Ed Rendell, called this malpractice for the Harris campaign to not have responded directly to the they-them ad. Here's what Kamala Harris should have said, or at least what I would say. First, that upon reflection, taxpayer funds should not be used for the transition of the incarcerated. Second, when it comes to athletics, the goal should be inclusion, but not at the expense of fairness. According to Swimming World magazine, Leah Thomas, the trans swimmer at the University of Pennsylvania, soared from the mid-500s ranking in men's competition to one of the top-ranked swimmers in women's competition. That wasn't fair. Third, while we need to emotionally support all facing questions about gender identity, we should be cautious before embracing life-altering, non-reversible medical treatment for minors who are diagnosed with gender dysphoria. Fourth, and finally, that we will not sit idle while some among us, no matter the size of the population, are used as political fodder in the culture wars. When Nancy Mace demonizes the Representative-elect Sarah McBride, our first concern should be the message of non-inclusion that sends to our youth who are struggling with gender identity issues in their formative years, because that's bullying. Data shows they are the most susceptible to the risks of anxiety, depression, and suicide. According to a 2015 study at the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, compared with non-transgendered peers, transgender youth were found to have an elevated risk of being diagnosed with depression, 50.6% to 20.6%, suffer from anxiety, have attempted suicide, and had engaged in self-harming activities without lethal intent. So, Congresswoman Mace, pick on someone other than the most vulnerable among us. It's time to take politics out of the T of LGBTQ.